Welcome to the Belated Tech channel's 159th installment covering milestones in space exploration, science, and technology. Another year is almost in the books, and Christmas is once again upon us. So in the spirit of the crew at Belated Tech, sending best wishes for a terrific holiday season to our friends, family, and viewers, we once again have decided to repeat the SpaceX Christmas launch special for 2021. That we originally did in 2019 and 2020. Every SpaceX launch that the company has conducted during the Christmas season, which we are defining as the month of December, will be shown here. 2021 was special for SpaceX in more than a few ways. The commercial space company broke its record for launches in a single year with 27. The Starlink internet broadband beta service expanded into 20 countries worldwide. And the Starship interplanetary spacecraft successfully concluded suborbital testing and was chosen by NASA for its lunar landing program. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and Happy Holidays from our family to yours. Enjoy the video. December 3rd, 2013, a Falcon 9 1.1 rocket, Booster 1004, lifted the SES-8 satellite to orbit from the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station's Launch Complex 40 on this date. No attempt was made to recover the booster. The SES satellite was built by Orbital Sciences, now Northrop Grumman. The communication satellite was initially co-located at 95 degrees east longitude in order to provide communications bandwidth growth capacity in the Asia-Pacific region, specifically South Asia and Indochina. December 21st, 2015, a Falcon 9 FT rocket, Booster 1019, lifted the Orbcomm OG-2 11 satellite cluster from the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station's Launch Complex 40 on this date, following the June 2015 destruction of Booster 1018 and the CRS-7 mission, resulting in the complete loss of the rocket and the C-109 Dragon freighter. Orbcomm OG-2 spacecraft are second-generation satellites intended to supplement and eventually replace the company's first-generation constellation. 18 satellites were ordered by 2008, nominally intended to be launched in 3 groups of 6 during 2010 to 2014, and with this launch the entire second-generation constellation was installed in orbit. Originally the satellites were to launch on the smaller Falcon 1E rocket, but all were delivered on Falcon 9 rockets after the Falcon 1 was discontinued in 2008. December 15th, 2017, CNBC noted on this date that SpaceX had become the first private company to launch a reused rocket on a NASA mission. The CRS-13 resupply mission was lifted on Booster 1035 from the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station's Launch Complex 40. It was Booster 1035's second mission, and it successfully returned to a ground pad. CNBC observed that the Space Shuttle was a reusable spacecraft launched with reusable solid rocket boosters, although the shuttle was a government-owned vehicle, and the boosters were designed and built by Thiokol, a defense and space federal contractor. The CRS-13 mission was the first launch to take place at the refurbished pad at Cape Canaveral after the 2016 Amos 6 explosion, and Booster 1035 had executed the 20th successful booster landing. Dragon C-108 was on its second mission. SpaceX had actually reused 3 boosters previous to the CRS-13 mission, but those were all for commercial customers. December 23rd, 2017, a Falcon 9 FT rocket, Booster 1036, lifted the Iridium Next 410 satellite cluster to orbit from Vandenberg Air Force Base's Launch Complex 4E on this date. The booster returned to Earth in a controlled ocean splashdown. It was the second use of B-1036, which was retired from service after its recovery. Iridium Next is a second-generation worldwide network of telecommunications satellites, consisting of 66 active spacecraft, with another 9 in-orbit spares and 6 on-ground spares. The constellation provides L-band data speeds of up to 128 kilobits per second to mobile terminals, up to 1.5 megabits per second to Iridium Pilot marine terminals, and high-speed Ka-band service of up to 8 megabits per second to fixed transportation terminals. December 5th, 2018, CRS-16 resupply freighter was lifted to the ISS on this date by a Falcon 9 B-5 rocket, Booster 1050, from the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station's Launch Complex 40. The booster, in use for the first time, experienced a grid fin hydraulic pump stall on re-entry, which caused it to spin out of control and crash short of the ground pad into the sea, destroying it. The Dragon 1 capsule, C-112, carried a total of 5,700 pounds of material into orbit. This included 3,500 pounds of pressurized cargo, including 40 mice bound from the International Space Station, and 2,200 pounds of unpressurized cargo, composed of 2 external station experiments, the Global Ecosystem Dynamics Investigation LiDAR, and the Robotic Refueling Mission 3 module. C-112 also carried a pair of CubeSats originally planned to launch aboard the Cygnus NG-10 resupply mission. These included the Unite CubeSat from the University of Southern Indiana, and the TechEd Sat-8 CubeSat from NASA's Ames Research Center. December 23, 2018, a Falcon 9 B5 rocket, booster 1054, lifted the GPS 3-01 Vespucci satellite to orbit from the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station's Launch Complex 40 near this date. No attempt was made to recover the booster. Initially planned for a Delta IV launch, this was SpaceX's first launch of an EELV class, or National Security Space Launch, payload. The booster was discarded for reuse due to the customer's requirements, including a high inclination orbit of 55 degrees. The U.S. Air Force marked the satellite operational on January 1, 2020, under the label SVN-74. December 5, 2019, a Falcon 9 B5 rocket, booster 1059, lifted the CRS-19 resupply freighter, Dragon C-106, to the ISS from the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station's Launch Complex 40 on this date. The booster successfully returned to a drone ship. It was the second resupply flight to use a cargo Dragon for the third time. This flight carried robotic tool stowage, a docking station that allows equipment that looks for leaks on the space station to be stored on the outside. Also on board were upgrades for the Cold Atom Laboratory. Onboard experiments include the testing of the spread of fire in space, and experiments to test the muscle and bone growth in microgravity. Additionally, there were 3 CubeSats from NASA's Elena 28 mission, including the Aztec Sat-1 satellite built by students in Mexico. December 17, 2019, a Falcon 9 B5 rocket, booster 1056, lifted the JCSat-18 satellite to orbit from the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station's Launch Complex 40 on this date. The booster successfully returned to a drone ship. Singapore-Japan venture CondoSat needed the satellite to cover the Asia-Pacific region. Due to the heavy weight of the payload, it was injected into a lower-energy subsynchronous orbit of 20,000 kilometers. The satellite lifted itself to a full geostationary transfer orbit. This was the third Falcon 9 launch for JSAT after 2 previous 2016 flights. SpaceX attempted to recover the fairing halves, but both missed the recovery boats, Miss Tree and Miss Chief. December 6, 2020, a Falcon 9 B5 rocket, booster 1058, lifted the CRS-21 resupply freighter, Dragon C-208, to the ISS from the Kennedy Space Center's Launch Complex 39A on this date. The booster successfully returned to a drone ship. This launch featured a number of firsts and major events. It was the first launch of Phase 2 of the CRS contract of 6 launches awarded in January 2016. It was the first launch of the upgraded version of the Cargo Dragon 2 spacecraft, with increased payload capacity and an autonomous docking to the ISS. The major payload was the Will Nanorock's Bishop airlock. The mission was the 100th successful Falcon 9 launch. December 9th, 2020, Starship serial number 8 launched from the Boca Chica Starbase's suborbital platform on this date. The craft reached an altitude of 7.8 miles and returned to the launch point, crashing on impact. The resulting explosion scattered wreckage across the landing pad, peppering the nearby structures with debris. The U.S. Federal Aviation Administration, which regulates U.S. space activities not overseen by NASA and the military, was not amused. Serial number 9, serial number 10, and serial number 11 all exploded on their return to the starbase in the subsequent weeks, pushing environmental activists into a frenzy. Although serial number 15 conducted a successful flight and returned to starbase without incident, the FAA went into a protracted review of SpaceX's request to amend its launch license to allow for orbital flights. The FAA is expected to rule by the end of 2021 as to whether it will grant the amendment with suggested environmental remedies, or whether it will demand a full environmental impact statement, which would effectively put an end to SpaceX's Texas commercial spaceport ambitions and force it to consider other commercial or government facilities. December 13, 2020, a Falcon 9 B5 rocket, Booster 1051, lifted the SXM-7 satellite to orbit from the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station's Launch Complex 40 on this date. The booster successfully returned to a drone ship. The mission launched the largest, high-powered broadcasting satellite for SiriusXM's digital audio radio service. SXM-7, an S-band satellite, was built by Maxar Technologies and intended to replace the SXM-3 satellite. However, the satellite developed an anomaly failure in orbit before going operational and was declared a total loss in March of 2021. The failure was not related to the launch. It was the first time a commercial primary payload flew on a booster which had been flown more than 4 times before, and the first dedicated customer launch where the fairings were previously used. December 19, 2020, Falcon 9 B5 rocket, Booster 1059, lifted the NROL-108 satellite to orbit from the Kennedy Space Center's Launch Complex 39A on this date. The booster successfully returned to a ground pad. The planned launch was not known by the public until FCC filings appeared in late September, followed by confirmation from the NRO on October 5th of 2020. The payload was light enough to allow the return of the booster to the launch site. It was the 5th launch of Booster 1059, which was to be reused on the Starlink 19 launch the following February. On December 2, 2021, SpaceX broke its yearly launch record with its Starlink Group 43 mission from the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station's Launch Complex 40. The company used a Falcon 9 rocket for that launch, Booster 1060, its 9th use. 48 Starlink satellites and 2 Black Sky Global satellites were released into orbit. The launch marked SpaceX's 27th Falcon 9 mission so far this year, beating the previous record of 26 that the company set in 2020. The company also launched 4 Starships in 2021, but all of those flights were suborbital, and none were operational flights. December 9, 2021, a Falcon 9 B5 rocket, Booster 1061, lifted the Imaging X-ray Polarimetry Explorer satellite to orbit from the Kennedy Space Center's Launch Complex 39A on this date. The booster successfully returned to a drone ship. The IXPE mission features a craft with 3 identical NASA telescopes on a single spacecraft designed to measure X-rays. The launch contract was awarded to SpaceX for $50.3 million and was the smallest dedicated payload ever launched by a Falcon 9 launch vehicle. However, the exacting equatorial orbit needed an orbital plane change that required a third of the Falcon 9's maximum theoretical orbital launch capacity. December 18, 2021, a Falcon 9 B5 rocket, Booster 1051, lifted the Starlink Group 4.4 cluster of satellites to low Earth orbit from the Vandenberg Space Force Base's Launch Complex 4E on this date. The booster returned to a drone ship. It was the first West Coast and 3rd overall 53.2 degree inclination Starlink launch. It was also the first time a Falcon 9 first stage booster flew for an 11th time. December 19, 2021, a Falcon 9 B5 rocket, Booster 1067, lifted the Turksat 5B satellite to orbit from the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station's Launch Complex 40 on this date. The booster successfully returned to a drone ship. It was the first geosynchronous transfer orbit-destined satellite partially built in Turkey. The 9,900-pound satellite was slated to be stationed at 42 degrees east longitude. With this launch, SpaceX set a new record for the shortest time between 2 Falcon 9 launches at 15 hours and 17 minutes. The previous record time was 44 hours and 17 minutes, set between the Starlink Group 2-1 and Inspiration 4 missions. A Falcon 9 B5 rocket, Booster 1069, lifted the CRS-24 resupply freighter, Dragon C209, to the ISS from the Kennedy Space Center's Launch Complex 39A on this date. The booster successfully returned to a drone ship. It was the fourth of 6 new cargo missions NASA awarded in 2015 to SpaceX under the CRS-2 contract, to be flown after the initial 20 missions of Phase 1 were completed in 2020. The Elena 38 mission, consisting of 4 CubeSats, were launched on this flight. Booster 1069's return was the 100th successful orbital rocket booster landing. That's a wrap. SpaceX has performed 17 Christmas season launches between 2006 and 2021. Have a great holiday season and stay safe throughout the New Year's Eve's festivities. What do you think about SpaceX's progress in spacecraft technology? Share with us by dropping a comment below. We hope you enjoyed this 159th installment in our Milestone series. If so, click that like button. Enjoying our content? We issue new videos every week, so be sure to subscribe so you stay current. Subscribing is free, and we encourage you to browse our 350 plus video library, where you can find more Milestones installments for every day of the year, as well as tech documentary segments, current events in space exploration, science and technology, gameplay recordings, reviews of tools and equipment, and reviews of small electronics and appliances. Each video is tagged with an alphanumeric indicator in the title, so searches for particular segments are quick and easy. Once again, don't forget to subscribe, or just stay in touch by following us on our microblogging accounts, which are listed below, the community feed for this channel, our Instagram feed, and our Minds page. We announce all new videos and post some unique content on those outlets. And if you prefer an alternative video distribution source, consider visiting our channel on Rumble. Thanks for watching.